Crypto gang, it's the game, big gang, all gang, light gang, cash game, blockchain, whoa.
Cryptocurrencies are a relatively recent product and phenomenon that replaces physical money and its intrinsic value, or products like gold that have markets behind them, with an asset that's entirely digital and thus exists only on a computer. Cryptocurrencies use cryptography to secure transactions across a medium of exchange, and the people behind them typically control the creation of new units. Cryptocurrencies also help with the transfer of assets online, which is happening on an increasing basis considering most money exists on computers anyway, with that money being a virtual currency, which is still tied to actual fiat or physical money. So with that in mind, we wanted to break down the top cryptocurrencies out there in the hopes that at least some of you will bet on the right coin, and then make us, like filthy rich for pointing you in the right direction. So hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and let's get into it. EOS. As we'll see, every cryptocurrency on this list has its own niche. And because most of those niches have been filled by now, new coins have to offer a variation on an existing coin to gain a following. EOS does this by implementing a delegated proof-of-stake system, which allows users to basically give their voting right to someone else in exchange for a decreased transaction verification time, and also to make the network run more efficiently as a whole. Because these coins are decentralized, people essentially vote for changes to the system. And while people with more coins have more power, being able to acquire voting cash this way is an interesting concept.
Well, my belief is that this technology, this Bitcoin...
Ethereum Classic. Ethereum Classic is the original version of Ethereum, with the Ethereum that's further on this list being the result of a fork that occurred a while back, sort of like New Coke and Coke Classic. That split happened when a decentralized autonomous organization, or DAO, that was built on top of the original Ethereum pre-fork was hacked. That DAO was essentially a venture capital fund based on future distributed applications, and was hacked by one person who took advantage of a loophole in the code that allowed them to essentially siphon off a third of the over $150 million that the DAO had at the time. The response to that was the hard fork that created both versions of Ethereum and also basically made it so the hacker wouldn't be able to access the funds that they'd acquired. But because not everyone switched over to the new version, because it looked a lot like the bailout that people were using products like Ethereum to protest, basically, not everyone signed up for the new version of Ethereum. And thus, Ethereum
Classic provides value towards Ethereum.
Stellar Lumens XLM. Stellar Lumens XLM is similar to Ripple's XRP, in that it's attempting to become the blockchain technology used by the banking system itself. Most cryptocurrencies actually aim to replace banks, so the prices for things like XLM and XRP seem to lag behind the rest of the industry for, working with the enemy. XLM could also end up as a bridge between cryptocurrencies, or host other so-called anchors on their Stellar network.
You can buy Stellar on the Bittrex exchange and on the Poloniex exchange are the two that I have used.
Dash. Bitcoin was initially created, or at least became a value, because it allowed people to make anonymous purchases online, which really came in handy when someone wanted to buy things on the dark web, like drugs, guns, or, horribly, people. To really calm banks and a lot of the money that's pushed Bitcoin to the price it's at today, Bitcoin sort of shook a lot of the privacy behind it, so it no longer looks like the slave trading and money laundering coin du jour. Enter Dash, which, while striving to fill that gap, has ended up with hundreds of millions to billions of dollars behind it anyway. Dash also lives up to its name by offering faster transactions than Bitcoin through its instant send technology. While we're still in the infancy of the whole crypto market, it'll be interesting to see if coins like Dash end up killing Bitcoin by splitting it up, essentially doing smaller versions of what Bitcoin can do better than what Bitcoin can do. If so, look at Dash as one of the main culprits, hopefully from an investor's point of view as well.
Where I invested for the future.
Cardano. Built by a team of technology-focused academics and developers, Cardano sought to innovate an already new and innovative industry. Written in a memory-safe coding language called Haskell, Cardano theoretically should have a lot fewer problems and bugs than its competition. Cardano's proof-of-stake system personally and formally verifies parts of the Cardano network, which means that it's much safer than the other coins on this list. It's also found a pretty great way to balance the whole privacy/regulator problem by using a multi-layer architecture, which means that people who flock to cryptocurrencies because of the privacy behind them can rest assured that the regulators that'll inevitably flood the crypto market won't be able to access their identities. That could literally make or break most coins, so keep an eye out for Cardano in the future.
So that's Cardano.
Iota. Iota had a huge push recently to overtake Ripple on this list of the top coins by market cap. A coin that targets the Internet of Things, Iota is unique in that it doesn't utilize a blockchain in order to lower the computational needs of the network it's being utilized as or for. On top of that, it would eliminate the transaction fees associated with that work, which is part of what makes it so attractive to its target market. Its breakthrough technology is called Tangle, which removes dedicated miners who are typically needed to verify transactions on most every other cryptocurrency by having the sender in a transaction do the proof of work that approves two transactions. Long story short, it further decentralizes the Internet of Things by making every user a node in the network. And from a philosophical standpoint, that's something that people involved in cryptocurrencies really buy into, which could explain its rapid rise this year where it reached $5 per coin. It also becomes faster the larger it gets, which is the opposite of what most coins do. Pretty big leg up there. Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash is the result of another one of those forks in the blockchain technology behind Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash was a hard fork just like Bitcoin Gold, both of which were responses to Bitcoin's apparent scalability problem.
Scaling is not something we're going to solve. Scaling is something that we will improve continuously, hopefully over decades.
As compared to Visa, for example, which can handle almost 50,000 transactions per second, Bitcoin could handle around 7, creating, as you might imagine, a bottleneck that increased fees as well as the delayed processing of a transaction that didn't fit into a given block. That issue created what was called an ideological battle over Bitcoin's future, and Bitcoin Cash was one of the answers to that battle. Called at the time Bitcoin Improvement Proposal 91, or BIP 91, some thought that they were essentially kicking the can down the road by not addressing that pesky scalability issue. It officially started trading as its own block on July 23, 2017, and it adopted its name thanks to those behind the Chinese mining pool via BTC.
一道题，这样的话，我们谁计算正确的话，就会得到奖励。这个奖励就是我。
Bitcoin Gold. Like Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold is another one of those hard forks, and it occurred a few months after the one that created Bitcoin Cash. Despite the relatively recent adaptation of Bitcoin Gold, it's already the 8th largest cryptocurrency by market cap. Bitcoin Gold is primarily aimed at decentralizing Bitcoin mining as a response to mining's move from CPUs to GPUs, then to the ASIC chips that most computers don't have, which means that most mining has been concentrated to a few large mining operators who can afford to buy computers with ASIC chips. Because that gives a small few tremendous power in terms of voting for new features, Bitcoin Gold attempts to decentralize their power by implementing new safety features like replay protection and unique address formats.
It's vintage motoring, so it's not as quick, but anyone can get in and work on it.
Litecoin. Because of Bitcoin's dominance, especially early on in the crypto game, other coins have positioned themselves as not so much a replacement or competitor, but more of like a Me Too complement to Bitcoin. As you've seen, in addition to Bitcoin, there's Bitcoin Gold and Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin has been positioned as the silver to Bitcoin Gold. Like Bitcoin, people can mine Litecoin, and it's open source. The main differences between the two lie in the way transactions go down, namely in the volume of transactions that Litecoin can handle because of its faster block generation. However, there is a downside to this as well, as the disadvantage that comes with a higher volume of blocks will lead to more orphaned blocks. Whether or not the transaction and the confirmation speed that Litecoin can boast is a relevant selling point remains to be seen, but both are considered moot points by Bitcoin's adherents. However, considering the volatility that exists in a lot of the crypto markets currently, you'd think that the quicker the transaction time, the less risk involved. Ripple. Most cryptocurrencies are decentralized.
A new generation of entrepreneurs is building Society 3.0. Join us.
Meaning that no single entity, like say a bank, has the ability to make decisions or change the pricing. That makes a lot of sense, as cryptos were launched really as a response to the financial meltdown that occurred in 2007 and 8, and as a way to revolutionize the international banking system.
Is the fact that this is about a new parallel financial system that is in the works.
XRP, which is the coin created by the company Ripple, is actually a centralized system that's attempting to also revolutionize the banking system, but by doing so from the inside. While its price is relatively low at around 25 cents per XRP, Ripple's goals are to change the way that banks and people send money internationally. Typically, money is sent between countries through a system called SWIFT, which takes 2 to 3 business days and costs a pretty penny. Ripple's system takes 10 seconds and costs a fraction of that pretty penny, which is obviously very attractive to the banks that do thousands of transactions a day. XRP is also deflationary, meaning that the coins that exist now are the coins that'll exist forever. So when you add that to the fact that a small percentage of coins are destroyed with each transaction, and the banks are already signing up for trials with Ripple's technology, it's easy to see why Ripple is thought to have one of the brightest futures on this list. Because right now, it actually has a real-world use.
So central banks are working with Ripple today?
Ethereum. Outside of Bitcoin, Ethereum is the king of cryptocurrencies. Launched in July 2015 after a crowdfunding campaign, the key of Ethereum is that it's a programmable blockchain that is also Turing complete. Turing being in reference to Alan Turing, considered the father of computing, and, was also played by Benedict Cumberbatch in that film The Imitation Game. Anyways, something is said to be Turing complete if it can be used to simulate a Turing machine. So in this case, Ethereum is a programmable blockchain language that can essentially solve any reasonable computational problem. While that may not mean a whole lot to the average investor, it clearly means a lot to the people in the know, and those people dictated that Ethereum should be the runner-up to Bitcoin. Due to this ringing endorsement, the price soared through last year. In January of 2017, the price of one Ethereum coin was around $9.30. By New Year's Eve, it sat at over $458.35. That means that if you had purchased $1,000 worth of Ethereum in January, you'd have netted nearly $50,000 by year's end. And then there's the king, Bitcoin. Launched in 2009, Bitcoin has been attributed to Satoshi Nakamoto, and it's the crypto to Bitcoin Core's reference client. Every coin is based on Bitcoin, and all of their users hope that they'll end up growing like Bitcoin as well. While it was initially known as a way to pay for things online anonymously, preferably on dark websites like Silk Road, it was actually set up as a libertarian response to central banking and the financial crisis of 2008 that virtually crippled many of the economies of the Western world. A decentralized system, Bitcoin essentially aims to replace banking as a whole by bringing the power back to the people. While it's different from the other coins on this list in terms of how it functions and why it functions, it's more important to talk about the amazing value that Bitcoin has provided to its investors. Peaking at over $16,000 towards the end of 2017, people who invested only $10 when the coin was trading at between 1 and 3 cents would be millionaires as of the posting of this video. So if you're a millionaire thanks to Bitcoin, congratulations, and, maybe send some money over my way. Who do you think the winners and losers of cryptocurrencies are going to be? Let us know in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button for your chance to get an iPhone X.